There'll be a short pause. There'll be a short pause. And we're on. Okay, boys and girls, we should be live on YouTube.
I'm on the IEPPV YouTube channel and I see nothing.
Okay. So am I. So what did that do then? Oh, Rebecca sees it live. Apparently we are live.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's odd because I see it on my computer, but that's doesn't mean much.
I'm on the YouTube channel and I'm not seeing it.
Can we ask Rebecca to share the link on the Facebook channel, please?
Rebecca will hear that in just a minute.
Oh, you know what? Maybe it's under playlist. Let me go see.
No, it shouldn't be. It should be just on.
No.
Okay.
I'm on videos. I'm on home. Nothing. Let me try a different browser, I guess.
It should be on home. You're right, Steve. I don't see it either. I don't know.
I see it, Steve.
Where did you look to find it, Stan?
I just went to IEPPV channel, then right next where it says live now, I just clicked on live now and that was it.
Really?
Okay. I see the IEPPV logo screen up.
Where do you see live?
I see you, Steve, in the channel.
That's weird. I don't. Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's.
I see Sean.
So I'm in the channel and I don't see it.
I see it.
Logged in.
It says IEPPV 2019 May image competition. IEPP live has 4 people watching it, and you can click on the live now button. IEPPV has 34 subscribers.
Let me subscribe. Yeah, I see the 34 subscribers.
Oh, that's what I only see 30 subscribers. So.
I'm in.
Control F5.
On an iPad?
Well, yeah, it's not on iPad.
Yeah, I'm really good.
You just need to refresh the page.
Oh, no, what have we got to? Hang on.
I've refreshed. I've closed. I've even opened
Start
it in
again.
the browser.
Okay.
So I'm out of luck, I guess. I was going to watch the feed too, but oh well.
I see it.
Okay, so audience, if you can hear us, we apologize. We seem to be having some technical difficulties. Unfortunately, our video guru is otherwise unavailable, so I'm having to try and figure this out and seem to be maneuvering with some difficulty. We will be with you very shortly. We have a wonderful complement of judges ready to enthrall you and a great selection of images. Just bear with us if you would. So Stan, are you on the home tab or the videos tab?
I'm on IEPP. I just go to the top of YouTube. Type in IEPPV live stream.
Hold on. It just popped up for me.
Stream.
It just came in on its own, so I'm good.
Maybe it has to make its way around the internet to different servers and stuff, depending on who your provider is. Who knows?
Okay. It's weird that it's that right next to me. Oh, well, whatever. As long as someone can see it, that's all that matters.
Yep.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome. I apologize that you can't see me, and that's probably a good thing, but either way, welcome to the May competition for image competition for Inland Empire professional photographers and videographers. We have 3 amazing judges to entertain us and to provide constructive critical feedback on the images. We have 59 images in the competition. And I'm going to ask the judges very briefly to introduce themselves, starting with Steve Brazel, who's the first login. Steve, go ahead.
Well, hi to everybody. I'm Steve Brazel. I am IEPPV member and former board member, and looking forward to judging some great images tonight.
And then next to Stephen Sharp, if you would be so kind. Sharp.
Hi, I'm Stephen Scharf. I'm a professional real estate and motorsports photojournalist as part of my photographer career, and I've been judging some photography competitions for Troy and IEPPV in the past, and some of you may have seen the one we did on Zoom a couple months ago. So it's great to be back here.
Welcome back, and thank you. And then finally, Sean Capshaw, if you'd be so kind.
My name is Sean Capshaw. I am a master photographer. I'm based here in Tulsa. I'm a member of the INPPA, which is Indian Nations PPA, and I am primarily a wedding and portrait photographer.
Cool. So we have a wide range of skills here: wedding and portrait, photojournalism, news, concert photography. A really truly capable panel, and an interesting selection of judges of images. So the judges are aware of the scoring system. Just very briefly, I will remind you of the mechanics. Please type your scores into the chat. Stan will do the calculations. I will read the scores back, and I'll ask each one of you to talk in turn, one judge per image. If you would like to challenge, please say challenge, and then I will have each of you talk about it, followed by the challenger getting a chance to rebut. You will then rescore, and we will announce the final scores. A reminder for our listeners, 80 points and above is considered to be a merit image. Since nobody can hear each other, we don't recommend clapping, but if you want to clap, you're welcome to do so. When we did this in person, everyone would applaud for 80 and above. Once we get to the end of each category, we will then identify any images that scored a 78 or a 79. I will show those briefly back to the judges and ask them to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That will be done by either clicking the check or the yes or the no buttons within the chat system if you look in the panel at the bottom of your screen. Or you can type yes or no into the chat. Actually, yes or no is easier in the chat. And then if we get 2 thumbs up or more, then that gets the image gets bumped to a merit. When we've finished all of the categories, we will announce that that is the end of the live show, and we will then switch off the YouTube feed. The judges then deliberate to pick out the best of show from the calculated best of categories. And then on Wednesday, we have our general meeting at Eagle Glen Golf Club in Corona. We will start off with a brief award ceremony to recognize the category winners and the overall best in show, followed by then having a little portrait session. We've got 3 wonderful instructors to take you around the golf course and shoot some beautiful models. So that's what we have coming up for the next couple of days. At that point, judges, is everybody ready?
Good to go.
Ready?
Okay. Scorers, we all ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, scorers, if you would all put yourself onto mute so that the only 4 people that can speak are me and the 3 judges, that would be great. Thank you. So the first category of the evening is our children category. This is a general category for children and covers all ages of children. However, we do have a separate seniors category, so you can expect this is mostly going to be younger children in this. It follows the normal rules of a portrait type of category, but specific for children. The first image in the children's category is called Baby's Dream. Baby's Dream. And the score is 78. Steve Brazel, please, would you take this away?
Yeah. First of all, to the maker, what a beautiful subject. I love what you did with the lighting. Actually, it's kind of flat to me a little bit, But overall, for what you're trying to convey, I like the environment. I like the setting that you've got, the kind of cloud feel that you've got. Here's what kept me from meriting the image. There's a couple of things. I'm going to start from the outside in. First of all, when you present an image like this that's got that busy background around the child, I think the matting matching that is very, very distracting along with the white key line. I think I would draw more into the subject if you were to have a more subdued matting. That said, when you get in towards the child, the lighting is kind of flat to me. I'd like to see something a little bit more dramatic, and the Photoshop work around it, especially around the ears that you'll see on the knit cap, they blend in such a way, and the halo around the top of the child's body, there's a slight halo up there. If you're going to do something like this, you got to zoom in really, really tight and make sure that those edges are clean and blend in correctly and well and don't look like Photoshop work. Same at the bottom of the child. The top, you've got the white halo, but then at the bottom, you've got kind of sharp edges the way the clouds come up in front of the child. So you really got to zoom in 400, 500, 600% if you have to, pixel level, and make those edges really clean. But you're on to a really great concept here with what you did with the clouds.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, the next image is I play roller hockey. I play roller hockey. And the final score is 82. Stephen Scharf, please would you talk to this image?
Sure. I think actually this is a very well executed portrait. I like the engagement of the subject with the photographer or the camera, basically the viewer. It's very well lit. I think the pose for this type of sports portrait, I think, is very appropriate. And it's nice that you have some context established by showing his helmet there, so you know what type of athlete he is. I would say, in terms of improvement, I think there's some highlights on the face that are a little on the hot side. It could be brought down and help this image score a little bit higher. But overall, I think it's a very well executed portrait.
Nick, do you mind if I add to that?
Go ahead, please, Steve.
Everything Stephen said, that I think it's not too hot on the face where you could not bring that down in post. And I'd love to see you on the edge of his mouth or the bridge of the nose type thing. But here's what I want to touch on. Compositionally, I love this image. The eyes are tack sharp, but compositionally, his right hand is extremely close to the bottom of that framing. And there's a lot of extra space above that's not adding anything to the image. If he were slid up in that frame and even off to the side a little bit behind him to camera right, it would make this a much stronger image. As well, if you gave a little execution to the fingers that are holding the actual helmet, have them be together, leave the gaps out in between, and have him even bend them a little bit, because the way they're bent now, they almost look like they're bent backwards. So think about those little details on the composition.
Mm-hmm.
Need to unmute myself. Judges, I apologize. I just had an update from the scorer. Apparently the corrected score was 81. The scorer rounded the wrong way. So we apologize for those 81 points.
And I realize I spoke, but did not say my score. My score was an 80.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Okay. The next image is called Meticulous First Timer. Meticulous First Timer.
I apologize. I think I've lost the chat.
You should be able to get it back from the bottom of your Zoom screen. Just click on the little chat balloon.
And when I click on chat, it's trying to leave the webinar. Oh, here we come.
Okay, final score is 80 points. Sean Capshaw, please, would you talk to?
I scored this as 77. So the things that I like about it, I like what's happening in the scene as far as him touching the strawberry and the kind of the look and the feeling on his face and the gingerly way in which he's holding the fruit. All of those things work really, really well. This is a tough image to make at this time of day. And when we look at some of the highlights and some of the shadows, I mean, we've exposed for the shadows, which is the correct thing to do. But what it's done is it's caused that lighting to be a little bit flat. The other thing is I feel like we've missed focus a little bit. I feel like the focus is backside of the ear or the rim of the hat rather than the eyes. And that, to me, and almost always in PPA, will keep it out of a merit. I would say additionally that the backgrounds on the horizon is a little bit busy with palm trees and things, but overall, it's a nice image. It's worth maybe taking this a little bit further, but I think you're going to have to control the light a little bit more and definitely nail that focus on the eyes.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, our next image and the final image in the children category is called Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty. And the final score is 80 points. Steve Brazel, back to you.
Yeah, first of all, to the maker, again, just babies. They're just, I mean, this is a beautiful framing, lovely composition. I'm going to be honest, I struggled giving this, and I did give this an 80. I struggled. In my head, I was almost at a 78 on this, even as much as I love the image, the subject, and the composition. And here's why. Again, as with the last image that Sean mentioned, the focus is not really on that front eye. It's on the hair in the middle of the forehead. And I'd love to see that eye tack sharp. I don't mind it falling off on the back eye, but I really wish that eye was a little more in focus. But here's what mostly held me back. The scarf or netting or gauze, whatever you want to call it, in the front is so hot that it's completely drawing me away from this beautiful child. The child is beautifully exposed. You need to burn that down in the front so that my focus, my attention goes to the child. Other than that, again, compositionally, I think the crop and presentation here is really nice. I just need to really bring my focus to the eyes of that child.
Can I add something on that?
Go ahead, please.
I feel like the key line hurts this image. I feel like it's too bold and it pulls us out of the image.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a good point, and it's a comment that we get from time to time on images, so useful to hear that again. Before we go on to the next category, we do have one image for review. That image is Baby's Dream. Baby's Dream. Judges, can you give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the chat? Just say up or down. Stays the same. Okay. Our next category is commercial. We only have a single image in the commercial, and that is Sunset at the City. Sunset at the City. Score is 79. Stephen Scharf, take it away.
Thanks. I like this image very much. I actually do quite a bit of commercial photography as well, so I can relate to the photographer's interest in this subject. I think it's an interesting photograph of an urban skyline and some water. The structures are certainly interesting and draw the eye. I would say with respect to some opportunities to make this strong image even stronger is to reposition the composition a little bit. The edge of the, I guess, the shore or where the city skyline starts is almost at 50% of the image. And so it's hard for me to kind of ground the image in terms of, is it the water that's drawing my interest or the skyline or the sky? So I'd like to maybe see this image recomposed slightly so that perhaps the bottom of the city skyline's a little bit lower towards the lower third. And then I'd also maybe have taken this just a little bit earlier. There's not a lot of difference in the tonal range between the sky, the city, and the water. And I think maybe 5 minutes earlier, I think would have been a more interesting photograph in terms of showing just a little bit more luminance of the water, a little bit more delineation between the skyline and the sky. And then there's some sort of flare over on the left side near the building at the far left that is a little bit distracting. Pulling my eye a little bit away. And then I would have probably burned down the highlight on that central skyscraper in the middle. It's a little on the hot side. And I might bring up some of the quarter tones a little bit as well, just to show some of the other structures and their shapes a little bit more.
Can I add one quick thing, Nick?
Go ahead, Steve.
Everything he said, including the center horizon, but the key line here to me is one that is actually distracting. It's a little too bright for this image in that color that it's drawing my eye away. The big thing for me, though, it's clearly a long exposure based on the way that the water is looking. The sky is so noisy, and that could have been dealt with. You got to bring that noise into somewhere that's reasonable, especially when the buildings are not tack sharp all the way across. If you're going to do a skyline like this, I want detail in every building all the way across. There's no reason not to. So do what you need to do to get that. But otherwise, I love the subject matter.
Thank you, Steve. So that being the end of the commercial category, we only have one image for review. If you would just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the chat, please. Stays the same. Okay, our next category is digital artistry. Digital artistry is a category focused more on post-processing skills than on the specific photography. Obviously, it's important to produce an image that is a thing of beauty, but we're really focused on the skill that it took to assemble the image. And the photography itself is important, but it's really more focused on that. First image in the category, Free Spirits. Free Spirits. Final score, 77. And Sean, I think it's your turn.
This is always a tough category to judge because obviously we're not being quite so stringent on some of the photography and really looking more at the skills. I think compositionally, it's an interesting idea. I can definitely see what they're going for. One of the things that bothers me the most is the placement of the butterfly based on where she's looking. So we get the feel like that's supposed to be the center of attention. She's supposed to be gazing towards it. And to me, she's gazing way over the top of it. And that kind of kills what the image is for me as far as putting the elements together. Beyond that, there are some technical things. I feel like some of the clipping masks are, for how soft the image is, the clipping masks are very sharp, especially around her hand. So we don't get the sharpness in detail, for example, on her fingernails that we do on the edge of the finger against this guy. And again, it just makes it feel kind of out of place. And so those kinds of things keep me out of a merit on it. There's some other photographic things that are a bit of a bother, but I'm not going to critique those in this category.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next image in the category, and this is the final image in the digital artistry category. More than a game. More than a game. Final score is 82 points. Steve Brazel, back to you.
Yeah, I'm actually going to challenge this. I kind of want to know where my other judges are at on this one, because it's interesting. So that you know, I'm at an 85, and thank you for typing that in the chat there, Nick. This is for a digital artistry category. I love what they did with this. First of all, the main image. I love the look on his face. I love that he's looking right into the camera. I like the catch light, the lighting on the sides of his face. Just really well done. His hand position on the ball, his hand position for his right hand that's not on the ball, the way he's leaning on the bat, the fade of the shadow, where he lands on the left side of the frame, both top and left side and bottom, are all expertly framed for where he's at. And here's what really sells me on this image. You see this type of image everywhere, right? Every sports team has these, and there's a million photographers that try and be creative with these. The hat movement on the three images on the right, you get extra points for me just on the creativity of having him take his hat off and then looking down as though he's thinking about the game. And the way he is blended into the smoke all the way around is expertly done, even to the fact that his upper body doesn't have any texture, but the smoke is adding texture to his lower body. The slight key line with no matting normally would bother me. Here it works really well. So I'm at an 85. I'd like to challenge this and get this up in a category.
Okay, Stephen Scharf, your thoughts?
I agree with all of Steve's comments about the execution, the technical execution, the framing of him looking into the camera, and also the compositing is excellent. I guess for me, the issue I have with is just him putting his hat on or taking it off. I found it a little bit discordant in terms of that part of that connecting, I guess, with me. It does kind of reflect the body language of an athlete. I think the central main pose reflects that better, which is what why I scored it as an 82. I think it's really well done. I'm just, I guess, a little distracted somewhat by the pose he chose with respect to the hat, or the three sets of poses.
And Sean, your thoughts?
Okay, I landed on this one at a, where's my score? The chat is weird. I'm a 79. So when this first came around, I was an 85 for everything that's been said. Lighting's great, the images are great, the compositing is great, all of that stuff is great. And then I started looking at the story And so because we read left to right and top to bottom, what we are led to believe is the taking off of the hat. But the hand on the back of the hat to me really feels like a putting on of the hat. I don't know that I've ever taken a hat off. And again, this may just be me, but it feels like that story is backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that it should be the other direction, but I feel like what he's doing with his hands are putting the hat on. And that to me makes the story feel disjointed. And because of that, it kept me out of the merit. But short of that, I think it's an 85.
So Steve Brazel, rebuttal.
Okay. So here's my rebuttal to all of that. And Sean, great point. The back of the hand on the back of the hat does look like he's putting it on, at which point he's going bottom to top instead of top to bottom and left to right.
Right.
And I see your point that it's a little disjointing. I don't think, first of all, this is a digital artistry category. So that while the story matters, we're really judging the craftsmanship here. And I think the craftsmanship here is just next level. The other thing is, as far as the fact that he may be putting it on or taking it off, I don't think that we are here to judge. You know, like Stephen said, you know, he didn't think that the hat thing at all made much sense for the choice of it. I don't think we're here to judge how they chose to tell their story, just if it was successful. And whether you read it as on or off, we clearly understand what he's doing. He's successful in doing it. We get the concept, and it's brilliantly executed. So for me, I'm still at an 85.
Okay, judges, please rescore.
Okay.
Just type your score into the chat, same as before, if you would. Final score is 83. Good challenge, Steve. Thank you. Okay, so next category is the illustrative category. Illustrative or illustrative, depending on your perspective, is a bit of a catch-all category for things that don't fit in other categories. So very much focused on the photography, but not necessarily pure play portraits, photojournalism, and so on. We have a number of images, and our first image is conversing with the past. Conversing with the past. Final score is 80 points. Stephen Scharf, take it away.
Thanks. This is a really interesting image. I think it's intended to be pretty evocative. I like the setting and the lighting, and the black and white, I think, is clearly the format or the medium for this particular photograph. I'm struggling a little bit with the realization of the concept here. I'm getting the message, but I'm not fully, I guess I'm not getting a lot of impact is what I'm missing that conveys, that matches the title in terms of the remembrance of the past here. I do think that there's a tie in between the graphic on the right wall and the chairs, but I have a little bit of a cognitive disconnect between the title and the realization of that concept in this photograph.
Can I add to that?
Go ahead, Steve.
This is first of all, I actually really love the image. I think it's really unique, neat. I could see this framed. This would really benefit from some matting and a thinner key line for one, just a better presentation. But more than that, I am not connecting with that title at all. Titles matter because I'm now looking for conversing with the past, and I can't find it. What I ended up finding by looking around was there's a weird kind of almost like a white vignette at the very bottom right corner that kind of takes away from the tone of the floor. It actually made me find flaws in the image. By the way, I'm at an 80 on this one, so I did merit it. But yeah, this could really use a better title and better presentation.
Okay, before we move on, I've had a request to go back to the baseball player. We have another challenge. Just give me a second. This may take a moment. There we go. More than a game. More than a game. Sean, you wanted to challenge this.
Yeah, I'm mostly challenging myself on it. You know, after it left, I just kind of, I couldn't let it go. I feel like I underscored this, so I think it's all been said. I just want to rescore it. I think I owe it to the maker to be a little more reasonable on the score.
Okay. Steve, any comments before we rescore?
Nope.
Okay, gentlemen, please rescore. While the judges are scoring, a note to our audience: each judge has the right to score, to challenge any image. So it is possible to have multiple challenges. It's relatively rare at the affiliate level, more common when you get up into the higher levels of competition. But this is certainly a case where it was appropriate, and we'll see what the score comes up to be. Final score, 84 points. Good challenge, Sean. Thank you. Apologies for the operator error there. Next image is Praying Baby Buddha. Praying Baby Buddha. Back in the illustrative category. Final score is 79. Sean, you get to go.
I scored the image of 79. Being a photograph of a piece of art, the maker really only has control over a few things: exposure, lighting, composition, what the boy is doing, the position of the hands, that kind of stuff. It literally is set in stone. The maker doesn't have any control over that. So if we're looking at the things that the maker can control, I feel like the highlights on this image are a little bit too hot. I feel like in the brightest points of it that we're losing detail. I also feel like the background is fairly distracting. So to me, I would say possibly photograph this piece at a little bit softer light time of day. We're right on the edge of a merit for me. I think the key line pulls it back down into the 79, and I know that's a horrible score, and it's in some ways it's a protest score, but I don't think this one would necessarily do well if it moves on. I don't know if it can be fixed or if it needs to be reshot, but I feel like 79 is the appropriate score for it. So it's above average, but doesn't quite merit for me.
Can I add one quick thing?
Go ahead, Steve.
So everything he said, the embossed look of the key line is really, really distracting, but the image itself has a ton of potential. I think you can fix this in post. There's one thing I'm not sure you can. Whatever he's sitting on that's at the bottom, chunk of the image, that concrete or whatever, is completely blurred all the way across him until you get to the right. And then there's a very sharp edge. And I'm not sure how that physically can happen in a photograph without Photoshop. So I could be wrong, but to me, you really need to look at that bottom right edge where the dark goes to the light, figure out why that's looking that way, and blend that in better. Even if it was natural, that's part of touching up an image. But nice job. And by the way, I was at 79 too.
Thank you, Steve. Useful comment, and yeah, interesting one. Next image, snow geese bugging out. Snow geese bugging out. Final score is 79. Stephen Sharp, we haven't heard from you for a little bit.
This is really an interesting image. It's really hard. It's a very dynamic wildlife image, and it certainly captured, I think, for using a sports photojournalism term, peak action. And this is clearly, I think, very representative of birds in flight. I guess I scored it an 82. I think it has a lot of potential. The only thing that kept me from scoring a little bit higher is I feel that there's a lot of compression of the depth of field. I might have shot this a little bit wider to get a little bit more separation of depth of field here so that it's not quite so flat with the background. And then also the highlights and many of the birds are blown. And so I think it's probably possible to pull back some of the texture on the birds there. But it's certainly a really interesting and excellent capture of wildlife.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next image, moving on in illustrative, we have tea time. Tea time. Final score 79. Mr. Brazel, back to you, sir.
So first of all, to the maker, I got to know where this is at because that's a really cool piece of art. I just absolutely at first I thought it was Photoshop work where they had a thing pouring and then I went, oh, wait a minute, that's a fountain. Okay. The matting on this is actually brighter than the background of the sky in the image. And that contrast is so drastic, it pulls me right out of the image into the matting. So really think about your presentation, not so much because it's going to radically affect your score, which by the way, I'm a 78 on this, but because that presentation really does just adjust our impact on the image. It adjusts how we see the rest of the colors in the image. So think about your presentation and your matting choice a little bit more. Here's the other thing. The teapot is just barely above dead center. I'd like to see that higher up in the frame. You've got a lot of space up at the top that you don't need if you brought that down a little bit, and you could bring it down a little bit below the cup. But the other thing is with the cup, if you're going to do an image like this of an art installation, do it justice, make sure the lines are true, and that plate that it's on is not level. So make sure that the artwork is level. You can even tell where the pipe going up is going at an angle. Well, that pipe, I'm guessing, is vertical. So make sure that everything looks true. Great concept. One last thing, time of day really does matter on something like this. So think about what a painter would do. They wouldn't paint this at noon with this type of lighting. They would paint it with good, proper lighting on it. So come back at a later time during the day or an earlier time and take this shot again, because it's really a cool idea.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, moving on. The next image, still in the illustrative category, Two Generations. Two Generations. Final score is 80 points. Let's go back to Sean.
I scored this image an 80. You know, it's a nice composition. It's similar to what is on the Sistine Chapel as far as the pose goes, the Adam and God touching fingers. You know, it's nice running at a diagonal. It's been handled well. The light is nice. We see good detail in it. If I had to say anything that would possibly bring it up a little bit, it's the key line is a little bit strong in intensity, not in thickness, but in intensity for how soft the image is. You might want to mute that or choose a different color that's not quite so bright. But I think it's a solid 80.
Okay, moving on. In illustrative, the final image in the illustrative category is Life on the Stone. Life on the Stone. Okay, there'll be a short pause. I threw a curve at the judges, at the scorers, by getting one image out of sequence, so bear with them while they just find everything and get it back on track. Final score is 80 points. Stephen Scharf, go for it.
This is really, I think, a very nicely seen image. I think the control over the light is really nice. I like the quality of light in particular. I think that the transition from the light on the butterfly down to the shadows that show the texture and shape of the face in the sculpture is really nicely handled. Overall, I think it's an effective photograph for the title and for the category. I would say it could be a little bit stronger by having maybe just a touch more negative space on the right. I think the key line is probably well suited for the presentation. I do find the dark area kind of down by the mouth a little distracting, since I don't know what that is. I don't know how it would best be handled if I did know what it was, but I find it a little distracting. But overall, I think it's a very nice photograph.
Okay, we have 2 images for review that have come up in this category. And first one is Praying Baby Buddha. Give me 1 second while I try and find that one. There we go. Praying Baby Buddha. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Stays the same. And then the second one is somebody help me here, please. Tea time. Tea time. Stays the same. Okay, the next category is landscape. First image, before the storm. Before the storm. Final score is 83 points. Mr. Basil, take it away.
Yeah, to the maker of this, really, really tastefully done. This could have been overcooked so easily. I've seen it a million times. I love your composition where you put the lighthouse balancing the third for the walkway or breakwater wall that's going out. The horizon line's in the middle, and I'm not totally comfortable with where the horizon line intersects the lighthouse building. Right at the seam of the ceiling, it makes this weird continuous line to my eye. Had you moved the camera angle down a little bit, which I fully understand you may not have been able to. I don't know what the ground was like under you. It may have been a hill, maybe a platypod to get it down. To lift that up into the sky a little bit so that the building penetrated the sky more, the core of the building, I think it would have been a notch up. The other thing I think can improve this image, 2 things: the detail in the sky in the middle, I'd love to see. And I think you may have it in this file, but you did lose a lot of white there in the sky. The matting or the key line, I don't mind. I kind of like the key line separated from a little bit of black. Very tastefully done. And by the way, I'm at an 83 on this one.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, moving on. Desert Vista. Desert Vista. Final score is 81. Sean, go for it.
I'm sorry, was that me?
Yes, sir.
I scored this image an 80. I would like to go higher, so let me start with the things that I like, which are, I think the presentation is handled very nicely. I like the composition. I like the leading lines of the clouds that kind of lead into the center of interest. All nicely done. The thing that keeps me from going any higher than 80 is I really want to see more detail in the highlights. I think there's so much stuff here that's wonderful. I feel like this could be fixed before it goes on, but I think we need to see what we're missing.
Can I add one quick thing? I know we're running.
Go ahead, Steve.
This image to me could be an 85. By the way, I'm in at 82 on this. This is a beautiful capture, a beautiful image, but exactly what he said. Those rocks are so hot. Burn this image down, and this could be an 85. It's a fantastic capture.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, moving on, still in the illustrative category, erosion. Erosion. Correction, that's in the landscape category. Final score 79, Stephen Scharf. Let's hear what you think.
I think this is a really interesting concept for a landscape. It certainly represents a not normally seen landscape, and for that I commend the maker for it. And I like the perspective. It's clear that the maker lowered the camera quite a bit to kind of provide this kind of lower perspective, which is really interesting to show the texture and the shape of the erosion in this arroyo or whatever arroyo-like landscape. I'm a little bit distracted by the intensity of the sun star. I think the sun star adds some interest, but it's just a little bit too much for me and draws me away from my interest in the texture and pattern of the erosion in the arroyo. I'm also seeing a little bit of a maybe an editing thing up at the upper right that draws my eye a little bit away. There's a little set of white pixels or whatever at the edge of this that I find a little distracting. But overall, I think it's a nicely seen photograph, and I do like the quality of light in the photograph as well.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on, still in the landscape category, Foggy Lake Sunrise. Foggy Lake Sunrise. Final score 83. Steve Brazel, let's hear what you have to say.
What? The people who can see my face, it was interesting, my face right then. My judges are going to tell me what I'm missing, I'm hoping. I gave this image a 90. I think this is really well executed. I love the extreme pano. I love the fog. I love the time of day, the lighting. I can actually see detail on that buoy that's in the water. Even with this lighting, the golden reddish light, orangish light that's on the water in front of me, and the way that fades back into the fog. The title speaks to me. The matting is really nice. Okay, you don't need the far outside key line. I'm not going to knock you down. You're allowed to present it how you want. I just think it detracts from it. But the image itself, to me, I'm a concert photographer. I'm not a landscape photographer. Please tell me what I'm missing. I'm challenging this. So there we go.
Can I go?
Go ahead, please.
So if the buoy was a guy in a fishing boat in silhouette, if it was anything other than the rock buoy, I'm up there with you. I'm at an 86, 87 on it. The problem for me is we have this really strong center of interest that is not interesting. Everything else is so amazingly beautiful, and then we put this sticker on it that is just kills it for me. If nothing else, just take it out. Take it out and gain the points on it. The buoy kills it for me, but everything else is really well done.
Yeah, my comments are exactly the same as Sean. I think that's why I scored it exactly the same. I think it has so much potential, but I think that the buoy or whatever that structure is just doesn't tie in with both the scene, the beautiful scene that I'm looking at, the execution, or the title, and it just distracts me away from this really beautifully caught scene. So I think it doesn't need to be there. I'd be much more interested in it not being there.
Okay, so rebuttal.
So
Here's
Steve,
the deal.
let me just clarify. So you did actually challenge this then, even though you didn't.
I did, and I didn't type it originally because
No, it's
somebody
okay.
put in there that
We've
it was
got
an
that.
auto challenge. So
Please go ahead and rebut.
So here's the rebuttal to that. I understand what they're both saying, right? It would be really neat to see this image without that buoy there. However, the buoy was there, and it's not up to us to tell the maker how they should create their image. It's up to us to judge the image that the maker puts in front of us. And the buoy was really there, and the maker chose to leave it there to tell the story that it's water and it's got a buoy in it, and I can see the detail. I don't mind the detail. I don't mind the shadow. You know, other people said it's just that the object, the foreground object, is not interesting, but it's part of the scene. It's water. They have buoys. It's up to the maker whether they want to remove that buoy or not, and they chose not to. So to me, if the maker chose to leave it there as part of the story, it makes, if it was a butterfly, it wouldn't make any sense, but it's a buoy and it's in water, for God's sake. It makes total sense that it's there. You're adding your own vision of how you make an image to it, to me, which is not our job as judges. So again, I'm at a 90. I don't think I'm going to change anybody's mind, but I got to try.
Gentlemen, please rescore.
I tried.
You did try.
Final score is 84 points. Good challenge, Steve. Okay, moving on, still in the landscape category, ghost trails. Ghost trails. Final score is 86 points. Stephen Schaff.
I think this is really a nice, this looks to me like maybe it's Bodie up near Bishop, or not Bishop, Bridgeport in the Eastern Sierra. At least that's what it looks like to me. It could be somewhere else. I think it's really an interesting concept for a landscape. Again, not an ordinarily seen landscape. I think that the conception is actually very interesting, and I think you could score and do quite a bit better with a little bit more work in realizing the concept. There are a couple little highlights that I think are blown out that could be recovered and brought back a little bit. And I think also could be a little bit stronger compositionally. The building is right smack in the middle of the frame for me. There's a lot on the left side of the image that recedes off into darkness. You could probably kind of remove that left third of the image, and then it would be stronger composition. But you've got some nice strong diagonals that lead the eye into these interesting structures that are the subject of the photograph. And I think by just cropping it judiciously would make an interesting image stronger. carry a little bit more compositional weight, I guess.
Just one correction, and this is my mistake. It was actually 82 points. I misread the score. My mistake. 82 points. Thank you for your comment, Stephen. Okay, next in landscape, and with I believe a couple more to go, Secret Canyon. Secret Canyon. Final score, 78 points. Sean, let's hear from you.
I scored this image a 79. I like the texture in it. I like the color. I like the play against the orange and the warmth against the cool parts of the rock. The thing that bothers me on it is this big black dead area at the bottom. I feel like we've got too much in the image that there's no image in, and I'm wondering if we can't, if the maker wants to send it on, if he can't crop that out, because having all that black in the bottom kind of puts the detail portion of this pretty much right through the center of the image. I personally would like to see a different crop in it, and that keeps me out of a merit.
Can I just add a comment, Seth?
Go ahead, yes, please.
Yeah, I just want to echo Sean's comments. There's at least a third of the image that really doesn't contribute anything to the photograph. It does have a nice, interesting aspect ratio, which I think leads the eye through the color and the texture. There's actually really interesting use of complementary colors here, which is interesting to see in a natural landscape. But I do think it could be composed more strongly than it is in this presentation.
Thank you. Okay, next image, and I believe the one but last in landscape, Tasmania, 1836. Tasmania, 1836. The score is 86 points. Steve Brazel.
To the maker, really, really well done. I love the unique angle for shooting this building. The power pose, as it were, as though it were a portrait. I love the way you've done this. The symmetry is nice. This is one of those images. I don't mind it being in the middle of the frame because it just balances really well with the movement of the clouds. Your choice, by the way, for doing a long exposure on the clouds was very smart. By the way, I was at an 85 on this, let me mention. The fact that you got the stars and the cloud movement, you didn't get star trails at all. If you look at those stars, they're really well executed. So why didn't I go above an 85? Excuse me. The left side of the building is way too hot to me, but not so hot that you could not have fixed it. I'd just love to see more detail on the left side of the building, very edge of the building, and it's there. I don't think that's overexposed that far. You could bring it down just a hair, and I think it would just add a little bit more feel to the building. At the same time, I think the front of the building and the shadow side could be a little darker. You could dodge and burn that building and bring just a little bit more drama out of it to match that sky. Really well done.
One quick comment for the maker.
Go ahead.
If you're going to send it on, there's two stars on the left-hand side of this, about parallel with the top of the building, that are brighter than most of the other stars, that are a little bit, they just pull focus just a touch. I just burn them down just to keep you in the center of the image. It's so nice, there's no point in leaving it.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. Good point. Okay, moving on. The final image in the landscape category, trees of Sumba. Trees of Sumba. Final score, 88 points. Stephen Scharf.
First of all, I think this is really a beautiful, very beautiful photograph. It certainly meets the what I want to hang it on my wall criteria. I think it's beautifully rendered with respect to control of exposure, depth of field. The tonal range is superb. The sky, I think, is done just right. It does bisect, the water does bisect the frame a little bit, but I understand that where you were, it probably might not have been possible to raise or lower the camera. I might have cropped it just a hair off the bottom, but we're picking at nits here. Overall, I scored this at 86. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. 89, I'm sorry. And I think it's really beautifully done. I welcome one of the other judges to comment as well.
Gentlemen?
I'm challenging that.
It's challenging from the final 88 score.
Yeah. Okay. I'm really struggling after sitting. Usually when I sit and I look at an image, my score goes down. The longer I look at it, the more my score goes down. And I'm truly asking myself why I'm not in the superior category on this. There's a couple little nitpicky things, but my gosh, this is nice. Just the difference between the sharpness and the crispness of the trees and the smoothness of the water and the sky. I really feel like we need to reward the maker with a superior score on this image. I would encourage the judges to come up a couple points.
Mr. Brazel.
Okay, so I'm at an 86 on this, and I was originally an 84 and decided to come up to the 86. And what kept me down at the 84? First of all, to the maker, let me start with the amazing positives here. Everything they said is true. The sharpness of those trees with the softness of the long exposure on the water and the softness of the clouds, really, really, every choice you made in capturing this image was virtually perfect. Okay. Here's what's pulling me down. The horizontal, the horizon being dead center to me really is hurting my score. It's intersecting the trees at the canopy as opposed to in the canopy. It's right where the canopy starts. It's almost like an intersecting line to somebody's neck to me. It's cutting the top of the trees off, and that's really distracting. The other thing, it could use, honestly, just a slight vignette. The corners are all very, very bright. The sky, the whole image to me is a little bit, maybe a third of a stop hot. Here's where it really is noticeable. The far left 3 trees. Behind those trees is so bright that it literally doesn't match the rest and almost looks as though you missed post-processing there. So that's what kept me from going up to the 90 in the superior category. I'm still at an 86, but that was tough to get me there with that bright spot on the left.
Mr. Cobshaw.
I'm sorry, we're to a rebuttal.
Oh, we got to do Stephen Scharf first.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Mr. Scharf. Sorry, my mistake.
You know, I scored this a little bit higher, 1 point higher to get it into the superior category. I will acknowledge all of Steve Brazel's excellent points. I still do struggle, as he does a bit, with the horizon splitting the image almost perfectly 50-50 and right at the canopy of the trees. I grant all of that. And the hot area, he's absolutely correct. His comments are absolutely accurate. All that being said, I would still willingly hang this on my wall and look at it with pleasure. So I'm going to stay with my score.
Okay, and sorry, Mr. Capshaw, rebuttal, please.
Yes, so I hear the comments, and it's not that they are not valid. They are absolutely valid. And honestly, the thing that keeps me from going into the exceptional category is the bright spot on the horizon on the left. And I look at it, and for a second it bothers me, and then I can just let it go. As far as where the horizon is in the image, I think that's brilliant placement. And I say that because what we've got in essence is a division of this image between water and sky, between wood and leaves. I mean, I don't see any other place that horizon could be. To me, that's where it needs to be to make the story that it's making. And the fact that we've got so much of the tree trunks and then the reflection, I don't get the feel like the image is split down the middle. I feel it's very much weighted on the bottom, even though mechanically that horizon runs down the middle. Visually, it does not run down the middle for me. And therefore, I really feel like we should bump this into the 90. So I would encourage my other judges to come up just a couple points.
Gentlemen, rescore, please. Final score, 90 points. Congratulations, good challenge.
Thank you, John.
Okay, before we move on to the next category, I believe we have a couple of images for review. Scorers, if you would point me in the right direction, I'd be grateful. Okay, first image for review, erosion, is that correct? Erosion. Remains the same. Next image for review is Secret Canyon. Secret Canyon. Remains the same. Okay, moving to the next category, which is the nature category. And our first image is elegance. Elegance. Final score, 80 points. Stephen Schaff, will you take this away, please?
Yeah, I think this is actually a beautiful capture. I love the position and the composition. I'm assuming that this is an egret in flight from the egrets that I photographed. I can't tell if it's a snowy or grape egret, but it does look to be an egret. I love the position of how the wings are backlit, the position of the wings relative to the sky. I think that's very strong. I like the diagonal angle. It gives some dynamism to the photograph. Some of the edges of the bird are a little bit blown along the contours of the shoulders and the edges of the wings that I think could be recovered. What I'm struggling most with is the matting. I think the outer border is a bit distracting. I think maybe just a simple key line outside the photograph, or maybe even no key line, just would keep the picture, keep your eye moving out of the frame along the lines of the bird, the flight of the bird in this photograph. But overall, I think it's very nicely done. It's certainly a beautiful bird, and it's well captured.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next image in the category, Guardian of the Jungle. guardian of the jungle in nature. Final score, 78 points. Sean.
I scored this image as 78. It's a nice exposure on the animal, and I like the detail that's in it, the sharpness. The thing that keeps me out of a merit is the placement in the frame, the composition. It's just very, very tight on the bottom. He's got plenty of headroom on the top. And the presentation, I think, also hurts it with that strong green line. Those two things we would squeak by maybe with an 80, but it's not a super strong image. And with the two issues, it keeps me out of a merit score.
Can I say one quick thing, Nick?
Go ahead, Steve.
So I am at a 79 on this, and that might have been high, actually. Everything that Sean said, but one thing I just want to point out to the maker is watch your edges. The animal's hands are so close at the bottom, and in fact, one of them is actually cut a little bit. Make sure you leave room all the way around the animal.
Thank you, Steve. Good point. Okay, next image is called Just Ducky. Just Ducky.
We lost it there.
Picture's gone. There we go.
Sorry about that. Don't know what happened there. Final score 78. Stephen.
Which one?
Oh, sorry. Stephen Scharf.
Okay, I think Steve Brassel's up next, but I'll be happy.
Oh, he's
to take
okay.
it.
Well, I'm just picking at random. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I think this is a nice capture. I like in particular how the pattern of the water in a way recapitulates the texture and pattern of the duck's feathers. I think it'd be a little bit stronger in terms of the edit. I'm seeing some brightness around the upper body that's a bit distracting with respect to this capture. I don't know what's causing that, but it draws my eye a little bit away. I think the bill on the duck is a little bit hot as well. It could be burned down a little bit to show a little bit more texture, certainly along the right edge of the duck bill. It's a little bit bright and blown. Overall, I think it's a really nice photograph. I think it could be a bit better executed. I do like the composition and the idea, the concept. And I do like how the water in a way recapitulates the texture and shape, color of the feathers. I find that interesting.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next image in the nature category. Kramer of the Serengeti. Kramer of the Serengeti.
Oh.
Oh, Stephen Schaff, could you just retype your score to the panelists, not just to me? They didn't get the score.
Oh, sorry.
Just retype. There you go.
Sorry.
It's still sent to me. There we go. Final score 78. This time Steve Brazel, since I skipped you last time.
Okay, so to the maker, a lot of potential here, right? I mean, a giraffe is really honestly just such an amazing creature, and you're almost eye level, which I think is phenomenal. I think you had a great concept where you were, the angle you shot them, where their head was, the sharpness is wonderful. I like all of that. Here's where I'm struggling. And by the way, just so that you know, I'm at a 77 on this. The head is dead center in the frame. And if there was a little more neck to push that head up, you have a lot of room at the top. If there was a little more head to push that head up, I'd feel like their neck wasn't cut off. It would be natural that it was their neck. It's a little too close to the head center. Here's what else. I don't know if you cut him out of a background. My guess is that exposing for the giraffe caused the sky behind the giraffe to blow out. But if you look at the hairs on the back of the neck behind that almost wound looking thing, they're fading off very unnaturally, as though they disappeared with the exposure or bad Photoshop work, one of the two. I'm guessing the first one. That's happening to hairs all the way around the animal. At the top of the front antler, there's a little black dot. That probably was a hair that partially disappeared based on the thickness of the hair. Last but not least, the key line may not strike me as bad with the different matting, but the white matting is whiter than the background of the animal. So my eye goes to the brightest spot. I'm going to the matting. A couple of minor changes on this, and it's a really cute image. Last but not least, obviously, time of day could be better for lighting, but nice attempt, and I think you should try it again.
Yes, can I add a comment?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I want to echo everything Steve said. I think for me that where I struggle a little bit, again, the Photoshop work is clear with respect to the editing, but what I'm missing with respect to the title is the context. So I get no sense that that this animal's in the Serengeti because of the white background. But I like something in the background to give me some context of where the photograph is taken that's consistent with the title.
Thank you, Stephen. Good comment. Okay, next image in the nature category, playtime. Playtime. Final score 80 points. Sean, I think you're next.
I scored this image at 79. I like the sharpness in it. I like the light in the eyes. I like the mouth. I like the detail. I like the expression on the animal. The things that keep me out of a merit are, I feel the vignette is a little bit heavy, and honestly, the cropping on the bottom is too tight to its feet. With the headroom that we have, we really need a little more space at the bottom. The chopping off the foot bothers me. I also feel like we've done some Photoshop work to burn out some highlights, and we've filled them with a solid color. Just to the animal's right side, that highlight on the rock feels like it's got some weird Photoshop stuff going on to it. So I think it's got potential, and could possibly move on, especially if we've got more space that you could do a little bit different crop on it. But those are the things that keep me out of a merit.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next image in the category, Serengeti Sister. Serengeti Sister. Final score, 77 points. Stephen Scharf.
It's really a nice photograph. I imagine of a mother elephant and her baby. I don't know what baby elephants are called. Maybe cats. Composition, I think, could be a little bit stronger with her not quite dead center. Maybe on a third in the frame would add a little bit of compositional weight to the photograph. Where I'm struggling a bit is the separation between the elephants in the background and the foreground. It's too bright, and I'm missing. I'd like to burn that down a bit to separate her out a bit and keep my eye focused on her and her baby calf, rather than being drawn to the grass, both in front and behind her. And then there's some reverse vignetting at the corners, which again are drawing my eye away from the subject. I also think that the elephant can have a touch more contrast. It's a little on the flat side with respect to the contrast tonal profile. I think sharpening the tonal profile a little bit would add some interest to this subject as well.
Can I say one quick thing, Nick?
So go ahead, Steve.
So everything he said, and I want to specifically concentrate on the white vignette, the reverse vignette. As a designer, as an image maker, you are welcome to put any color vignette on there you want. It could be purple. That's your choice if you want to hang that on your wall. Image comp is not necessarily just, is it a good image or not, right? You may love it with the white vignette. That's great. Hang it. In an image competition, that will almost never score well with a white vignette because judges are always distracted by it. So when you do a vignette for image comp, think about your bright spots like a reverse vignette like that.
Thank you, Steve. That's a very good point. Good constructive feedback. Okay, next image. She's got legs. She's got legs. Final score, 79. Where have I got to? I'm going to give it to Brazil.
Okay, so I'm at an 81 on this one. I think I probably scored a little higher than everybody else, and I'm guessing I know why, but the image still spoke to me. To the maker, I love your idea of just shooting that much of this spider. What kept me from going above 81 and even kept me struggling to even get to a merit, it's all on a black background. That's fine. The light spot in the upper right doesn't do anything for me. And it would not be that hard for you to black that out in post and make it the spider's legs on a solid black background. I think it would just carry more weight that way and have a little bit more eeriness to it that way. I'm really drawn to that line up there. Other than that, the sharpness is great. There seems to be some Photoshop work where the feet are intersecting what I'm guessing is a table. I don't know. But either way, this would actually be in the right venue, like a bar. This would be kind of cool, printed large. So nice job by the maker.
Thank you, Steve. Okay.
If I could add one quick note on that one, and you don't need to bring it back. On the left-hand side, there's a bright spot at the joint of the animal's leg that happens to be right at the edge of the piece. It's very distracting and it pulls our focus out. Just burn that out or cleanse some hair in there, and I think it helps it quite a bit.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next move, still in the nature category, solitude. Solitude. Final score 78. Who's next? Sean.
I scored this image as 78. It's a nice image, lovely image. It's got nice color harmony to it. I think the presentation hurts it quite a bit, both in the color of the mat and the key line. The thing overall that keeps me out of a merit is I feel it's a very noisy image. It feels like it's got a lot of grain to it. And I don't know if that is an after effect or if that's the exposure was pushed to try and get some of the detail back. I think the noise and the blur of the pier on the left-hand side are the two things that keep me out of merit.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next image. Splendid. Splendid. Final score, 88 points. Stephen Schaff.
I think it's really a beautiful photograph of what I'm presuming is an orchid. I probably would have chosen a slightly different color for the key line, maybe just a very slight lighter color rather than probably the orange tones of the orchid there. I think the background is perfectly rendered with respect to being out of focus, but the right color to kind of complement this beautiful orchid. I do like the gradation of color tones from the greens to the reddish browns and the yellows, and certainly the shape and the composition draw your eye to the center of the orchid. The only thing that I scored this down a little bit from scoring higher is that it looks like the left edge of the orchid leaf that's extending out like a wing goes a little soft down towards the left edge. It goes a little out of the plane of focus. And I think it could probably be, photographed so that stays sharp against the background. And then the lighting, I'm a little bit distracted by the reflection of the lights on the very front of the orchid and along the edges of those wings. But other than that, I think it's really beautifully done.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next image, still in the nature category, Swans Lake. Swans Lake. Final score, 77. Mr. Brazel.
Okay, so to the maker, I want to go with you to the park next time because I absolutely love sitting next to water and looking at these wonderful creatures float by. That said, I'm going to start from the outside and work in here on what I think could get you up on this image. I'm at a 76 on this image. The image itself, from a concept point of view, has the capability of being a merit image. I don't think it can be fixed in this one, but you could do it again. The key line completely fights me for attention from anything that's inside the frame. Just a complete contrast to anything that's in there to me. The whole image is way too hot. You need to bring this thing down. But more importantly, we photograph light and shadows, and light matters. Direction of light, time of day when you're shooting a shot like this. And look at the shadow behind the back, on the body of the back bird. You can tell this sun is almost straight overhead. So this is at noon. This is just the wrong time to shoot this. Go back morning, go back golden hour, and try shooting this again. And when you do, make sure you shoot in such a way to keep both heads completely in focus, or the back one way out of focus. Feels like they were both intended to be, and they're not. And make sure that you get that exposure nailed so I can see the detail in those feathers.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving along. Next image in the nature category, under the drizzle. Under the drizzle. $82 points. Sean, take it away.
I scored this image an 80. It has nice sharpness throughout. I think the exposure is well handled. It's got a nice color palette. The thing that keeps me from going any higher, and honestly, I even vacillated on getting into the merit. It's just the composition. It's the placement of everything so low in the frame. I don't mind the shift over to the left, but it's just too tight to the bottom. I just need a little bit more space down there for things to breathe. And I think if we had a little more space, I come up a couple points.
Thank you, sir. And now we move on to another image in the nature category, under the beautiful Japanese red maple. Under the beautiful Japanese red maple.
Just deal.
Final score, 87 points. Stephen Schaff.
Really beautiful image. I want to congratulate the maker on this. I think it's really just beautifully done. It's very captivating to look at. In a way, the Japanese red maple also reminds me biologically of blood vessels in some other organism, which is really interesting, but it's really beautifully captured. I love the contrast of the red leaves against the blue sky and the green background. I think that this, with a little bit of work, could really, push into the superior category. I think it just needs a little bit of work on some of the speculars along that vertical branch or trunk coming up from the middle, and then the lower one at the bottom. If you just brought that down and burned that in a little bit, so it wasn't quite so bright, I think it would really help it a little bit. But overall, it's really a spectacular photograph. I like it very much.
Thank you.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in the lower left corner, there's wonderful sharpness throughout this image. In the lower left corner, we've got something that's very soft and a little bit blurry that's maybe in the foreground. It just needs to be dealt with. Just take care of it. It's just distracting.
Very good point. Okay, moving on to the final image in the nature category. Wanna dance? Wanna dance? $80 points. Steve Brazel.
Okay, so to the maker, I almost see this as a photojournalistic image, right? You're shooting an event that's happening in front of you, unfolding in front of you without becoming involved. Part of that type of capture of this type of live action requires you to really think about your position. And based on the shadows, the sun's coming from the back right-hand side. If you, and again, I don't know that you could have, that's entirely possible. You know, there's walls around you. I don't know. But lighting wise, I really would prefer that this shot was taken from a little bit more to the right. It would give me a little bit more drama on lighting and let you expose it better because you're shooting almost towards the sun. And so you had to expose it a little hot, and I'm getting a real brightness on the background. I think it can be fixed with some dodging and burning. The sky is hot. Bring it down. The ground on the bottom in front of the horses, way hot. You can bring all of that down as you can the grass in the background. Some massaging of this image would help it a great deal. Oh, by the way, I'm at a 78. My biggest problem with this is the sharpness in the faces is just not where I'd want it to be for this thing to get much above that. But some massaging of the images could get it to a merit for me.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, so now we go to the images for review. And give me 1 second while I just get there. First image is Guardian of the Jungle. Guardian of the Jungle. Stays the same. Next image, Just Ducky. Just Ducky. Stays the same. Next image, Kramer of the Serengeti. Kramer of the Serengeti. Stays the same. Next image, She's Got Legs. She's Got Legs. Stays the same. Final image for review in the nature category, Solitude. Solitude. Remains the same. Now we move into the pets category. And our first image is Brown-Eyed Puppy Love. Brown-Eyed Puppy Love. Final score, 78 points. Let us go to Stephen Scharf.
This is really a nice portrait of someone's pet. I'm imagining that it's possibly the maker's dog. I love the connection of the dog with the photographer. I think it's really nice. There's a nice key light in the eyes, and there's really strong engagement with the subject, with the photographer, which I think is really nice. I'd like to see maybe a little bit more depth of field on the dog, if possible, just down from his head onto his body a little bit more. I realize that you'd probably like to see the wood floor that he's on, or deck, to be slightly out of focus, but I'd like to see just a bit more depth of field. What I'm really struggling with is the presentation of the wide brown mat and the brown key line. I think just really distracts my attention away from this cute dog. And I think possibly maybe a black mat with maybe a light gray or even a white key line would have been more effective for the presentation here.
Thank you, sir.
Can I make one comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
On the presentation, if you just look at the image itself, the dog, the eyes of the dog are almost in the rule of thirds.
Right.
But we've weighted that mat at the top, which is pushing him more towards center. It almost needs to be weighted at the bottom rather than the top. So they've got it positioned wrong.
Yep. Agreed.
Thank you. That's a very good point. Okay. The final image in the pets character, in the pets category, sorry, Princess of Persia. Princess of Persia. Final score, 80 points. And I'm going to go to Mr. Capshaw.
So I'm a little curious why my other judges didn't like this. So yeah, the mat hurts it, the presentation hurts it. It's a little bit light, it draws us out. But this is such a fun and whimsical, painterly portrait of the cat. I mean, the eyes just have so much character, and the kind of softness and the texture. You really want to pet the animal based on this photo, and I think that's a wonderful quality to have. So you know, it's almost worked past the point of even being a photograph. I really enjoy it as a piece of art. I think this is well into the merit category.
What'd you give it, Sean?
An 84.
So, Sean, is that do I hear a challenge there?
It did merit, right?
It did merit, yes.
Yeah, we're okay. I can't get it to the next category, but I think it is a merit print. So
thank you. Okay, so we have one image for review in this category. The image is Brown-Eyed Puppy Love, and there he is. Remains the same. Our next category is photojournalism. In the photojournalism category, we allow minimal changes to the image at all. Basically, anything that could be done in the darkroom, so cropping, vignetting, dodging and burning, and that's about it. Nothing added, nothing taken away to materially change the story. First image in the category, daily commute. Daily commute. Final score, 80 points. Mr. Brazel, you're up.
Okay, so for a photojournalistic image to the maker, really, really nice timing, positioning, capture. I love the fact that the rear child's foot is up and out of the water, just like if you were shooting horses, you want their hooves moving. I love what you've done with it. They're all looking down. That would normally bother me, but they're walking through a rocky stream and they appear to be barefoot. All of that makes sense. Oh, by the way, I'm at an 80 on. Here's what kept me from going higher. While it is photojournalism, you can dodge and burn. Any traditional darkroom technique and dodging and burning are included in that. And there are areas, believe it or not, it's not even the waterfall behind them. It's more the specular highlights in the water and in the rocks. Bring those down so that I see a more solid ground for them standing on, lifting them up. And then there's one other thing that really pulled my eye instantly. It almost looks like a spider. I'm sure it's a bush. But in the upper right corner, there's something that just doesn't fit with anything else in the scene. I don't know if it's a piece of a plant. There's a little piece that's a highlight even that's sticking in, but I would just crop that out or clone it. Well, you can't clone it out because it's photojournalism. So I would just crop that out and I think it would become a stronger image, but really, really nice timing.
Thank you, Steve. Next image in the photojournalism category, crossing the lines, downtown transportation. Crossing the lines, downtown transportation. Final score, 77 points. Stephen Scharf, this one's yours.
Thank you. I think this is a nice image that has a lot of potential. I scored this at 70. I think in order for me to warrant a merit for this image, in particular, I'd like to see a little bit more detail on the pedestrian crossing the crosswalk there. It's a little bit, the texture of that person's clothing and face is a little bit crushed down to the shadows. So I think some judicious control over the exposure of the tonal range there would have helped. And then I might have maybe just cropped a little bit off the bottom and a little bit to the left just to kind of place the image. Clearly the crosswalks are a key part of the story of this photograph. You could probably crop down from the top a little bit as well, just to kind of balance the perspective between both the commuter train or the MTS, I'm assuming that's sort of metro train system, and the pedestrian. I do like the leading lines going through the photograph that the train is on. And that's kind of recapitulated by the pedestrian crossing the crosswalk. So I think maybe just some judicious cropping and control of the tonal range would get this image to a merit.
Can I say one thing, Nick?
Go ahead, Steve.
So photojournalism, everybody's going to look for the story because that's the whole concept. Yeah, there's some lighting issues here, like the pedestrian. You could, maybe lighten him up a little bit. But my biggest problem with this is I'm looking for stories, and the fact that it says no turn on red, literally right at the edge of the frame, is really just uncomfortable almost to see. There's got to be room for that sign or take the sign out. I understand you probably wanted the pole, but that's part of photojournalism, is choosing the right lens and framing it correctly. So those little things will bring it up. And by the way, I was at a 76 on this.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, next image in the photojournalism category, gnarly. Gnarly. Final score, 84. Sean, take it away.
I'm at an 85 on this. I really like the image. And the thing that I like most about this image is the dimension that we get from the surfer as the light wraps around him. For a PJ image where you have no control over light, that's really well done. This is a great moment. Plus, he's in this almost surreal kind of pose. Almost looks like animation as far as the way that he's contorted himself. The only thing that I don't like about the image that keeps me from going a little bit higher is the blue sky. But I don't know what we do with it, because if we start cropping it out, we lose the niceness of the wave that's behind the surfer. So I feel like we're kind of stuck where we are with it. But I think even at that, I'm into the excellent category. I think this is a really well done PJ image, and we should probably come up as judges.
Do I hear a challenge there?
What do we end up?
We're at 84.
Yeah, let's bring it up.
Okay.
I'll challenge it.
So Steve Brazel.
Okay, great challenge, Sean. I'm at an 83 on this image, and I really wanted to go 85, maybe even higher than that. I mean, the composition is actually what I love about the image. I even love the blue sky contrasted with that green water. And then you get deep water color, just a sliver of the deep water color in the middle. The moment you caught this surfer cutting and looking back, really your timing, everything is great. Here's what held me at an 83. And I'd be interested to hear the judges change my mind on this. You made the comment, Sean, that it looks almost animated, the separation. I don't know what the dodging and burning was on here, but the separation of that guy from the water is just insanely deep. There's so much depth there. And I'm looking at his hair, and his hair doesn't just look wet smooth. His hair looks animated smooth. The skin on his face doesn't just look wet smooth. It looks animated smooth. And I thought, was it noise reduction? And I looked at the sky. There's not a grain in the sky. I don't know if they over noise reduced it. I don't know what gave it that much smoothness that it looks cartoony, but I'm questioning that being used in photojournalism. If that's the case, maybe that's just his natural look. Maybe they didn't touch this at all, but it just seems so unnatural.
Thank you, Steve. Stephen Shaw.
I think it's a terrific photojournalism. I love the peak action being displayed here, which is a key criteria for sports photojournalism. Clearly, his body language indicates that he's at peak action here. I would agree with Steve Brazel's comments. I think it could score an 85. I'd like to see the lower left corner burned down just a little bit. The spray there could probably be burned down on some of the spray a little bit on the water. Draws me a little bit away from him. It's so interesting, his poses, or his movement on the board as he's cutting is really great. I want to stay focused on him. So I think just a little bit of work on this would certainly give it an 85 in my book.
Mr. Capshaw, rebuttal.
All right, in rebuttal, I think I have one word for Steve, and that is Vaseline. There's any number of things in reality that would give him hair like that, and it's really not, as you've stated before, it's not our job as judges to question the maker on those kind of level. We have to assume that if the makers entered this category, unless they're disqualified for it for something that comes up later, we have to assume that they've abided by the rules of that category. And in that case, this is an excellent image, and we need to show the maker that we can appreciate what they've created here. So I challenge you guys to come up.
I'll definitely give the maker the benefit of the doubt, because it's a
yeah, I will too. Yeah, I will too.
Okay, gentlemen, please rescore. And the final score is 86 points. Good challenge. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay, final image in the photojournalism category, hang time. Hang time. Final score, 81 points. Stephen Scharf. No, I think
It's really
my mistake. I
yeah.
should be Brazel.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. My mistake. Brazel, it's yours.
Is it me?
Yes, it is. Sorry, that was my mistake.
No
I got the
worries.
sequence wrong.
Okay, so I'm an 82 on this image. And as photojournalism goes, much like that surfing one, you got just the perfect moment. Not only did you catch him with the hand on the coping, but you caught him almost perfectly vertical with the board almost completely flat. That happens in a split second. So for you to catch him at that moment, and I love the coloring and light of the light. It seems really hot. The board is really blowing out on the one moment, but again, it's photojournalism. I'm willing to overlook that if you get the right moment. I also love the composition on this. The fact that the ground isn't level. I don't normally like a Dutch angle, but the fact that it leads almost to a golden spiral type effect really, really emphasizes where he is on the pool. I do wish that his head wasn't intersecting the coping, but again, I'll overlook that. So really to the maker, nice capture.
Okay, so that was all the images in photojournalism. Scorers, do we have any for review? Short pause. I'm waiting for my scorers to come back to me. None for review. So just before we move on to the portrait category, question to the judges. Does anybody need to take a brief break? We've been going to quite a while now. We do have a number of images to go.
Yeah, a 5-minute break.
Somebody else does
So we will take a 5-minute break. And ladies and gentlemen, on air, we will be back in 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Steve's back, just so that everybody knows. And to everybody, cheers.
Thank you, Steve. Okay. Welcome back, Stephen Schaff. I think that we have a full complement of judges. And Sean.
Okay, we're good to go.
Yep. Sean, I think you should be unmuted now, so we should have judges. Okay, getting back to where we were, we're now going into the portrait category. We have 19 more images to go. If you guys are ready.
Yes, sir.
First image in the portrait category, African Queen. African Queen. Sean, I think you sent your score to me privately. Can you just send it to the panelists?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. It's not liking to change.
I've typed it in for you, Sean, since you sent it to me. Final score 79. And Sean, I believe you're up, so your comment, please.
If you would skip me, I'm having a lot of technical problems.
Okay, in that case, Steve Brazel.
Okay. So for this image, I'm at a 79. And, you know, a lot of people say a 79 is a protest score. It's really not a protest score. I mean, there's a lot in this image that's leading to being a merit image at some point in time. The composition, I don't mind so much. But when you look at her left arm, camera right, it's kind of cut at the elbow. I wish it was a little bit of forearm in there. And the headset, dress, right. I don't mind her right arm so much, camera left, but it lands the headdress very close to the edge. The biggest thing that kept me from meriting this image, the eyes are not in focus. So the lighting is a little bit flat and the eyes are not in focus. If you can come with the same type of an image with the eyes nice and sharp and that hot spot off of her head and get a little more contrast in that lighting, I think it would bring this image up nicely.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, next image in the portrait category. Beautiful smile. Beautiful smile.
There it is. I'm having a lot of fun with this. I'm just truly freaking out on it.
Sean, is it not letting you type the scoring?
I can't get back to my chat. It will not open.
What if he were to disconnect the computer connection? His video's fine. Disconnect the computer.
I'm running 2 different devices.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you
The
might
video one's fine. So if you
reconnect
disconnect the typing one and reconnect it, maybe.
Let's try it. I just sent that to you,
Okay,
Nick,
I
for
got it.
scoring purposes.
Okay. Okay, so scores, if you can do that magic, please. Thank you.
All right, let's try and reconnect.
Final score is 81 points. Sean, I'll skip you again. And Stephen Schaff, can you talk about this, please?
I think this is really a lovely portrait of a very interesting subject. I love the character in the subject's face. The connection with the photographer or the viewer, I think, is very good. It's very nicely done. There's very good control over the light, the tonality, the texture, the color palette, I think, is very well executed. The framing is quite nice. The only thing that holds me back a bit, 2 things that hold me back a little bit from this is the color of the key line for the presentation and the fact that the top part of her hand is cut off. I think if we saw the top of her hand there and had a little bit more space above her head, this would really rank very nice. I maybe welcome input from Steve Brazel or Sean if they want to contribute, but I think it's very nicely done, and I think this has the potential to score higher if there's more of the photograph there to work with.
Gentlemen, any input?
I would just echo everything that Stephen said. Specifically, the color palette is just awesome. And I really love, for the maker, the shirt choice and even the towel looking old to match her. It would have been really weird with a new towel, you know what I mean? Right from Target.
Yeah.
This is just so perfect. If that hand was there, I'd be above an 85 for this image.
Yep. Yep.
And where it sits right now, I'm at an 80 just because that hand is so uncomfortable.
Sean, any comments? Oh, I think you. Try again. Sorry, you were muted there.
So am I back on?
Yes, you are.
I think it's been said.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on in portrait, we have Davina. Davina.
What's the title again?
Davina. Final score, 77 points. Sean, are you back in the game? Can we look you?
I might be back in the game.
Okay, welcome back.
I scored this image at 78. The thing I like about it is her expression. I love the energy that's in the image. The thing that keeps me, or the things that keep me out of a merit category on it, I feel like the skin tones, that coolness to the skin tone, I don't feel like it helps the image. I feel like it's in contrast to maybe her expression. The key line's nice, the presentation's nice. We're just losing so much detail in the shadows that I'd like to see a little bit more there, and I'd like to see the skin tones a little bit warmer. Additionally, the darkness of the hand and the face compared to the brightness of the chest and the shoulders, I think is an issue. Need to brighten up the hand a little bit, brighten up the face a little bit, and burn down the chest a little bit.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on in the portrait category. Honor. Honor. Final score, 85 points. Steve Brazel, take that one away.
Okay, so I'm the bad guy on this one. I'm at an 80, and I would go well above an 85 on this one normally, probably. His pose, where he's looking, the lighting, the catch light. I love the flag. The smoke is what's holding me back. So to the maker, great portrait, but then you added the smoke. And the smoke looks like it was added in post, and I'm on a color calibrated screen. It is, and I understand it's over the net to a point. It's not really, it's a cached local image, but there's some banding and some weird blotchiness where that smoke is on the lower part of his body below his arms.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, you don't need the smoke. You really don't need the smoke. It doesn't add to the story unless the boat's on fire. Really, without the smoke, I'd be over 85 on this image, but right now I'm at an 80. Great portrait part. It was just the smoke.
Can I add to Steve's comment?
Go ahead, please.
Stripes up, I'm at a 90. Stripes down, I'm at a 77.
Okay, excellent. Next image in the portrait category, Old School Beauty. Old School Beauty. Sean, we don't have your score yet.
Didn't come through.
Oh, no. Okay, thank you. There we go. Final score 77. And Sean, I think you're up.
I am at a 76 on this image. I like the pose. I think her expression is good. It's the contrast that's getting me. We're a little blown. The highlights are too bright, and there's not enough detail in the shadows. And then the whole image has got a filter or a treatment that makes it kind of milky. So it just has a quality to it that is not going to do well in image comp. And so if it is a filter or a treatment, you might try going back to the original and reworking it, but you've got to get a balance on the highlights. You got to get some detail in there, not push the image so much, and then possibly add a little bit of presentation to it.
Thank you, sir. Moving on in the portrait category, we have sculptural beauty. Sculptural beauty. Final score 81. Stephen Scharf, this one's yours.
I think overall this is a well-done image. It's an effective portrait for the most part. I think the lighting, control over lighting, and the gradation of tonality across the model and her dress is very well handled. The direction of light is, I think, appropriate for the particular photograph and the subject. I think the only thing that brings it down for me a little bit is the pose. Her right hand in particular, I think, probably could be posed a bit better. I know that there's probably an intention to show her nails in this photograph. I don't know that it's necessary for both hands. So I find the pose a little bit, I guess, a little bit stilted, a little in some respects. But overall, I think technically it's well handled, the photograph. I just think it suffers a little bit from the impact that it could have had with some better posing.
Can I add a quick one, Nick?
Go ahead, Steve.
I agree on the fingernails. They actually are distracting, and her left hand too looks like the fingers are bent backwards. But what's holding me back, I'm at an 80 on this image, and I almost didn't merit it for this. The maker did a great job technically. The lighting and sharpness, all awesome. Her face is just dead. There's no emotion to me coming out of her face, but look at her eyes. Her left eye, camera right, there's no white inside of it. I only see white outside of it. But the other eye's dead center in the white. And I need to see some white on both sides of that eye camera.
Thank you, Steve. Okay. Next, portrait image in the portrait category, seeing red. Seeing red. Final score 82. I'm going to go to Mr. Brazel because I've lost track of where we were.
Okay. To the maker, I love the concept of this portrait, and she's looking straight down the barrel of the lens. Her lips are slightly pursed apart. The lighting is nice. The catch lights are awesome. The highlights on her hair, really nice. things that held me. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say I was in an 82 on this image. Things that held me back are a couple of very minor things. One, I wish I could see the whole chair. The fact that only one leg of the chair is cut off and the chair is slanted a little bit is a little bit uncomfortable. Her left hand, I wish that her index finger wasn't so separated from the rest of the fingers. Take the time to really honestly pose the fingers. And again, I don't understand why the smoke is there. I don't understand how that's adding to the story. Maybe it's just adding background, but it's not on top of her. It's not affecting her. I'm at an 82, and with a couple of minor changes, this could be an 85 easy.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, next image, continuing in the portrait. This is actually the last image in the portrait category. Sunset smile. Sunset smile. '78. Sean.
I scored this image a 77. The thing that kills it for me is just the lighting. I mean, she's got a great expression. There's a lot of joy in it. She's pretty flat lit. There's just not a lot of control over the lighting. I will also say the things that hurt the image for portraits, if it can bend, you want to bend it. The straight arms are almost always going to hurt you. I also find that the background on this one, because it's so bright, is a little bit distracting. If you were to photograph this image from a little bit higher elevation, you would have eliminated some of that background. You also would have thinned out her chin a little bit. And I think that would have been more flattering for her. I mean, it's not a bad image. It's just not a merit image for me. So I'm staying at 77.
Okay, thank you. So that ends the portrait category. We have two images to review. The first one is African Queen. African Queen. Remains the same. And then the second image is titled Seeing Red. Thank you. Seeing Red.
That one, what did that one get?
I thought it merited.
Got a 78, didn't it?
No, it's higher than that.
So I beg your pardon, I've got Sunset Smile. Someone give me a number for that. Oh, there we go. Sunset Smile. My mistake. Sunset Smile. Okay, next remains the same. Next category, seniors. First image, focused. Focused. Final score is 83. Stephen Schaff.
I scored this an 85. I see that the other judges scored it a little bit differently. I think actually this is just a really excellent portrait. I don't have a lot to add. Maybe the other judges can chime in and see why they ranked it a little bit lower than I did. They have more experience in portraiture than I do. But overall, I think this is a fine senior portrait, and don't have much to criticize with it. So I'd be interested to hear what one or the other both judges would have to say about it.
Sean, do I see a challenge from you there?
You do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sean,
Stephen's right. This really should be an 85. I started off in the excellent category and came down a little bit. I want his hands and the football to be a little bit brighter, but it's not enough to pull it out of that excellent category. I'm at an 85. I should be at an 85 and was not. I don't think it can go any higher than that, but it deserves an 85.
Yeah.
Steve Brazel?
Okay, so I love this image and I'd score it higher. I love the fact that he's to the maker, that he's frame left looking frame right, and he's got some headroom and nose room to look into. I love how tack sharp his hands and the ball are. I sure wish his eyes were as tack sharp as that ball right. And they're just not. They're sharp, but they are not as sharp as the word Spalding. And that's all I care about. It's a portrait. To me, I love the catch light, by the way, too. Everything about the lighting and everything, but to me, the eyes are not tack sharp. And they should be in a portrait. Oh, and by the way, I'm at a, what did I give on this? 80. I did merit it, but I just couldn't go much above. And I merited it on all the good stuff. Couldn't go much above that with the eyes not being really sharp.
Go on, rebuttal.
Rebuttal. His ear is tack sharp and the football is tack sharp. So just by proximity, the eyes are tack sharp. If we're not seeing them as tack sharp, he might be wearing contacts.
So are you not? I'm not seeing even his eyelashes as tack sharp. Are you seeing his eyes as tack sharp along with?
I'm cleaning my glasses right now. I am.
Well, that was
still,
exciting.
I really wish
I
I could
agree.
see this. I wish I could see this as a print. I'm going to give the maker the benefit of the doubt because I see sharpness through the ear. I see sharpness enough to make me believe that there is tack sharp in those eyes. So I'm still thinking it's an 85.
Okay, gentlemen, rescore. Final score, 84. Okay, the final image in the thinners category, Justin. Justin.
What's the title?
Justin.
Could someone type that in the chat for me?
Justin.
Oh, Justin. Okay, thank you.
And the score is 77. Okay, Sean. Oh,
We're there. Hello.
yeah.
I scored this image.
That's you, Nick.
It's not me. I'm not sure where that's. Whoa.
Mute yourself.
No, it's not me. I'm muted.
Somebody's got their speakers up too loud. Okay.
I think it's gone now. So Sean, go for it.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
I think we got rid of it.
I scored this image as 78. I like what the maker has done as far as making him small and using this exaggerated lens choice. It's kind of fun. I feel like he's a little overexposed, and technically there seems to be a halo that's around him. If you look at where the leg intersects the grass and where his back intersects the sky, he's got kind of a glow. So I don't know if we dropped in the sky or if we just tried to push it, but really have to fix those technical issues when you get into image comp. It's a fun image, but it's only a 78 for me.
Okay, thank you. So that wraps up the seniors category. I do not believe we have any for review. Scorers, can you confirm that? So moving on to the wedding category. Wedding category. First look. First look. '81. Stephen Schaff.
I wish Troy were here. He's the our wedding expert. I really don't have a lot of experience. I do think this is an effective wedding portrait. I like the engagement between the couple in the photograph. It certainly shows their connection and feelings for each other. I think it's very well lit. I think the control of lighting on the whole is very good. I probably would have personally cropped this just a little bit tighter to put more emphasis on them. Make sure that they're a little bit more closer to a third. They're a little bit in the middle for me, but that's a niggle. But maybe just crop in a little bit down from the top and from the right, just a skosh to kind of balance them compositionally. And then I'd say overall, it's very well handled and executed. The only thing I would say is that the groom's hand looks like it's a little lighter than the rest of their skin tones, and it's a little bit mismatched, but that's the only thing I could find. I think that I would work on in post on this other than a crop, perhaps.
Thank you, sir. Moving on in wedding. Our journey begins. Our journey begins.
Nick, I've entered twice there.
Okay. The scorers only have one spot to put it in, so you can agree with yourself. Final score 79. Sean, you get to talk about it.
I scored this image as 79. It's a nice moment between them. I know that we've gone for a soft kind of ethereal kind of wedding bliss treatment or mood with the image, but it just feels to me it's lacking sharpness through the faces, through the eyes, the hair, the bouquet. The other thing that really holds me out of a mirror is that I feel like there's a blue cast, so it's almost like the white balance wasn't quite right. We're in the shade, and so the light's going to be a little bit bluer. They just don't have a warmness to them that I would like to see in a wedding image. So the warmness kind of helps build that love, that connection. I think it's possibly correctable. Warm up the skin tones, add a little bit of sharpening to it, especially if you're going to send it on.
Can I say one thing, Nick?
Go ahead, Steve.
You've got a beautiful bride and groom. in front of a super soft background. And then in the bottom right corner, you have flowers that are almost sharp. And if you're going to want them separated from a soft, blurry bokeh background, go down and blur that or crop it out because it's competing for them. Other than that, great moment. I love the moment to the maker. Vignette would help too, by the way.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, final image in the wedding category, Suite 15. Suite 15. Final score 78. Steve Brazel.
Okay, so I'm at a 78 on this image. Beautiful subject. I actually like her pose. She's looking to the light. I wish her eyes weren't closed. I do wish that I could see her beautiful eyes because she's got a beautiful outfit. I'm having a disconnect with the title and what I'm guessing the subject is and the category. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be in this category, but it is a wedding category. And I'm guessing this is a quinceañera or something like that based on the Suite 15, maybe turning 16, you know, that type of a thing. I like her on the path. I like her on the third. I think if you had more trail in front of her, I would rather see a little bit more ground and pathway in front of her and less trees and lights. I think that would balance her out, bring her up to where her shoulders maybe or lower third. I think you'd still maintain what you're going for, which I get, that expanse and that environment that she's in, but it would make it less bottom heavy. And that would bring me up for that. And again, I'm at a 78.
Steve, just a point to the judges. We do allow quinceañeras, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs in the wedding category, so long as the shot was taken on the wedding day.
Yeah. You mean on the quinceañera day?
On the day of the event.
Yeah, okay, which is fine. And I didn't count anything off for that, did not subtract for that. I'm just saying the title is kind of a disconnect for that, but still, 78, beautiful image. I just think some compositional things could fix it.
Going to make one comment to the maker.
Go ahead. Yes, please.
Once you see the park bench, you can't unsee the park bench.
Thank you, sir. Good point. Okay, we have two images for review. The first is, oh, what happened there? Our journey begins. Our journey begins. Remains the same. And the second one is Suite 15. Suite 15. Remains the same. Okay, our final category of the evening is the workshop category. This category is judged the same as every other category. However, the images were captured during a workshop or under tuition from an instructor. So while they're judged and critiqued exactly the same as every other image, they're not eligible for final year awards. So judges, please, this is a really important educational tool, and I know you'll do your best with this. Thank you. First image is battered. Battered. Final score 78. Stephen, Sharp.
Oh, thanks.
It's really an interesting image. It's certainly evocative. I like the time of day and the setting. I'm not sure where this was. It originally reminded me of some of the trees of Namibia photographs that I've seen, but I don't think it's at that location. I think the sky is nicely handled. It's clearly a longer exposure, which means that the clouds are showing some movement, which I think gives a nice sense of place and the desolation of this particular setting. I'd like to maybe see again the tree not quite so centered, maybe on a third and a little bit lower in the frame, again, just to lend some compositional weight to the photograph. I think the key line is well handled. I'm seeing a little white line right at the horizon on the right, just to the right of the tree, that pulls my eye away from it a little bit. I don't know what that's due to, but that's something I would probably try to fix with some of the tools in Photoshop to make sure that the edge of the sky matches the horizon there, the ground horizon appropriately. Overall, though, I think it's a nice photograph.
Thank you, sir. Next image in the workshop category, beast. Beast. Final score 78. Sean.
I scored the image as 79. I love the texture in his face. I love the kind of gnarliness. You get a real feel for kind of who he is and what's going on. The thing that keeps me out of a merit is whatever this piece of pipe is that's in front of him, that basically keeps us, it stops us from going into the image. I don't know if it's part of the motorcycle or something that's in his hand. I don't think that you would be able to take it out, but as you're making this image, you have to recognize that as a barrier and change your angle to get something where that's not going to conflict with the true part of the image that's really, really nice. So 79.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next one in the workshop category, beautiful tree. Beautiful tree. Sean, we're still waiting.
I'm in. You don't see it?
No, not sure who it went to. You try it again. There we go. Thank you, sir. Final score, 80 points. Stu Brazel.
Okay, so when this one first, oh, by the way, I am at I'm at an 80 on this image. To the maker, great eye. When this first popped up, I was actually kind of surprised this is a workshop image. It's the color, the angle, the where you laid that back reddish wall compared to the rock that's behind it. Your choices here were really, really nice. What kept me from going higher? couple of things. First of all, the rock behind the tree is kind of hot. I'm not saying it's clipped, it's not overexposed. It's just so contrasty to the tree. And the trunk is as well. So I really think the whole middle could be brought down. And what I'm thinking maybe is the whole image maybe was just a hair hot, but you put a vignette on it, which worked. But I think you should have brought the whole image down before the vignette. And I think it would have really brought a little more richness out. The only other thing that I would say, and I'm looking as we talk, it seems a little bit, just a hair over sharp. So be careful of that as well. But really beautiful aim, beautiful composition.
Could I add something?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I agree with what Steve said as well. I think it's beautifully seen. It's certainly a nice time of day. My guess, this is probably mid-October timeframe somewhere in the West, judging from the vegetation and things like that. For me, I don't know how this was taken, if it's a single frame and then manipulated to kind of bring up the shadows relative to the highlights. I probably would have shot this with an exposure bracket. For me, the tonal profile is a little bit flat. There's just a hint of an HDR look to it. And I think that by maybe shooting a 5 or 6, or I'm sorry, a 4 or 5 exposure frame bracket where you'd have more control over the tonal range so that you could make that tree, as Steve pointed out, a little bit more dimensional, a little bit more contrast in the main trunk and the branches, and to separate that tree away from that background. I think it would have been really, it could have been scored quite a bit higher and provided even more impact.
Thank you, Steve. Good point. Okay, next image in the workshop category, Endless Avenue. Endless Avenue.
Oh, I've been there.
Final score, 79. Sean. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, Stephen Shelf. My mistake.
Okay, one of my favorite places on Earth. This is clearly Utah. If I were to hazard a guess, I would say this is part of Arches National Park, one of my favorite places to photograph. It looks like it's probably about 2 p.m. or so in the afternoon, judging from the light. I think I've been on this trail, so the title was appropriate. It's an interesting look, a lower perspective, which I find interesting. And it's somewhat in keeping with the title, I think. I'm getting some distortion that looks like it was shot maybe with a fisheye or a very wide angle lens. So I'm getting some extension distortion here in the photograph. There's some curvature. I don't know if it's from the lens or from the landscape, but it looks like it's an optical distortion that's going on, which creates a little bit of dissonance for me visually. I think that it could have been a very effective photograph with probably, and I'm just picking at nits here, probably a rectilinear lens would have worked better in this situation, just from a technical perspective. But and maybe looking up a little bit from the grass so that you see a bit more of the really interesting architectural features of these rocks and things like that in the background. I think that's where my eye wants to go, and the grass and the shrubs in the foreground lead my eye a little bit away from. I guess this was a pano, that's why it's got curvature. So not from the lens, but I'd like to see a little bit more of the interesting rocks, a little bit less of the foreground of the ground. So,
thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, next image in the workshop category. I made it. I made it.
Did you get mine?
No, sir.
How about now?
No, we did, yep. Final score, 81. Sean, this one's yours.
I'm at an 80 on this image. I think it's a very nicely done image. I like the overall, the treatment, the outfit, the expression on the girl's face. The thing that keeps me from going any higher is the matte on it. When we're looking at images, our eyes are always going to be drawn to the areas of greatest contrast and the areas of greatest sharpness. And what we've got on the matte is that the speckle treatment is actually sharper than what's going on in the background. And because of that, it pulls us out. And anytime we're pulled out of an image, it's going to hurt the overall image. So darker matte possibly, but definitely, avoid that sharp speckly look because it competes with the detail and the texture in her face. But I think this is a nice image. Definitely could do well and is easily a merit image.
Thank you, sir. Okay, the final image in the category, and therefore the final image in the competition. Ride 'em, cowboy. Ride 'em, cowboy. Final score, 80 points. Steve, wrap us up.
Okay, so I'm at an 81 on this image, and I'm glad that it was an 80 because I was ready to challenge this one to get it up if it dropped below an 80. This is a great capture. It's great timing. The hoof up, the water not only up around the horse, but coming up behind the rider is nice. The nice warm tones in the grass, the sun on the rider, but you can see the line of the shadow of the brim of his hat, his focus, his attention, the sharpness, everything. So why didn't I go above an 81? Here's what I think would improve this image. You have to worry about consistency of things that are naturally consistent. So the sky at the angle that you're at would be the same brightness, color, and contrast throughout where you're shooting. But because of either vignetting or gradients or dodging and burning, the sky above the trees on the left has been overburned down to the point where the trees actually even look a little weird there. But above his head, it wasn't. So you have two different color skies, even though they're in a place they would be the same. The grass is a beautiful color, but the trees behind him are super bright, those bushes. I would burn the bushes down. I would either even out the sky, or even better yet, I'd lighten up the upper left corner, and those bushes in front of the horse are clipped too dark. That whole area, I'd bring a little more detail back in the top left, and then you've got a really strong image here. Really nice capture to the maker.
Can I add a note?
Yeah, please do. Go ahead.
You've got to bring back the detail in the cowboy's face, the mustache, the area on the cheek. It's blown out, and if it's going to do well at a higher level competition, you're going to have to see some detail in there.
So we have a few images for review in the category. Since unfortunately I don't have slide numbers, so I'm just going to have to hunt for them. Just bear with me a second. First one is battered. Battered. Stays the same. Next one is beast. Beast. Remains the same. Next one is Endless Avenue. Remains the same. Oh, no, no, back. It's all right, we've overshot. And then we have Beautiful Tree, finally. Goes up, becomes a merit. That wraps our show for the up our show for the evening. Gentlemen, the scorers and judges, thank you very much for yeoman's work. I hate to do this to you, but I'm afraid we still have some work to do. Those of you on the YouTube, we're going to switch off streaming in just a moment. Thank you very much for watching. Come and join us on Wednesday at Eagle Glen, and then you'll hear who won the categories, who won the overall show. Once again, thank you for your patience, and we'll see you on Wednesday evening. I'm going to turn off the stream now.